It's kind of like Pandora's box. Once you say, I'm really anxious, or I have PTSD symptoms, or I'm feeling down or depressed, or I'm spending too much money compulsively, like whatever it is, eating too much, we can go on and on. To admit that something's really going on internally is very scary for anyone who has been socialized. Got to handle it all. You're basically on your own. No one's going to step up and help you. You've got to work. You've got to pay your bills. You've got to
Yeah.
take care of your loved ones. No one's looking out for you. So to admit, uh-oh, something's going on, it's like admitting a huge vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that, to admit, hey, something's going on, and all of my coping strategies, all the things worked for me in the past are not working now.
Yeah.
And it's like, uh-oh, big time. It's really, really scary. And the question is, are you ready then to open up to a complete stranger when you've been taking care of yourself and handling it all internally, to open up to someone you don't know, like somebody gave you a name? Like it's really hard to do that. And also to believe that someone else can help you when you've been helping yourself, or will anyone really understand what your experience is? So it's not easy to maneuver that. And often what happens is people come to therapy, and I've seen people who were literally 80 years old who were traumatized, who have PTSD. They were socialized. Don't tell anyone. You're going to be punished if you tell anyone. You'll be thrown out of the family, or you won't have any money, or they'll kill you, whatever it is. So you get socialized not to say anything. So I've met people I never told a soul about this. I'm 80 years old. Can you? I mean, that's just. And then they just open up, and then someone's bearing witness to their trauma, listening for the first time, and it's so healing to sit there and have someone listen quietly to your experience. That is so powerful, and a lot of people never get the chance to do that because they're like, I have to deal with it myself. I have to handle it myself.
Yeah.
I've got to be stronger. What's wrong with me? I can do better. I shouldn't be anxious. I shouldn't be depressed. I shouldn't have trouble getting my work done.
Right.
We're all socialized to do so much with little room to say, I need help.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Kamisha. Hello, Miss Carolyn.
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Lori.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is Denise and Kamisha, and we are the Wisdom and Bloom podcast hosts. We have Carolyn Haas with us, who is the host of Finding 50 podcast, and we are bringing to you today our new collaborative, The Center Table. And our first guest on the center table of many wonderful and beautiful guests is Dr. Lori Davis, and she is a licensed clinical psychologist. She's in psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medical College. She also has a private practice in New York where she specializes in anxiety disorders and trauma. And you can find her on Instagram at Dr. Lori Davis Everything, where she shares tips and strategies for managing anxiety and stress. She has anxiety too. So this is not just something that she does. This is a passion because she suffers with the very thing that she's helping others with. And she believes that you can live a meaningful, productive, playful life even with anxiety. Now, that's a little bit short of her bio, but I got to tell you guys, I was researching Dr. Lori Davis, and I have to share some of her accolades, and I hope I don't embarrass you, but her professional experience, you got to listen to this, is clinical instructor of psychology and psychiatry at the Weill Cornell Medical College. She's a professional associate at New York Presbyterian Hospital. She's a former assistant director at the NYU Institute for Trauma and Stress. She's a former director of the free treatment program for individuals adversely affected by the events of 9/11. She's an adjunct clinical supervisor at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. She helps develop cognitive behavioral treatment for adolescents with a history of trauma. She has also, guys, submitted several different publications around behavioral therapy, PTSD, trauma, especially specific to 9/11, and stress disorders. And there is so much more. We are so happy to bring this phenomenal young midlife magic lady to our podcast. Welcome, 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 Dr. Lori Davis.
Woo!
Welcome.
Well, thanks,
Wow.
thanks for that very warm welcome. And yeah, I'm definitely embarrassed, but it is true.
It's well earned.
And I'm still moving forward in life.
Yeah, we don't toot our own horn enough,
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Lori.
love
It's
it.
not easy. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
hard, very hard. But the one commonality that me and Kamisha share that we have always met on is that we love to see others win. And we are always cheering others on and cheering each other on because it is something about, especially women, it is something about seeing a woman win and having other women root for her and cheer for her,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah. So we're cheering for you, baby.
Yep.
Cheering for one another. It's really
That's right.
surprising how a lot of people are talking about this, how disappointing it is when women are not cheering for other women and they're having the opposite effect. And it's hard to understand. We need to stick together. We need to be a community and raise each other up. And for some reason, people just derive some kind of good feelings from tearing people down.
Yeah.
I don't really understand it.
It's weird.
And it is weird. I hope too that as we get to certain ages, especially as women in these age groups, that we start to realize that all of our experiences and all of the things that we've learned and the ways that we've grown throughout life culminate also and are richer because of the amazing women that we've experienced those things with. And there's nothing like, being a woman who has amazing friends, and the support that you can get from women is incredible. The ability to keep each other held up high is incredible. And you're right, though. It's unfortunate when that doesn't happen because I think we know better and we can do better when it comes to things like that. But we're in an amazing group here on this podcast. And again, I'm really happy that you've joined our collaboration because as Denise said, we definitely appreciate you. And this is where we talk about things that can help women and make them live better lives. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. You have anything to add to that, Kamisha?
No, I think it's wonderful that we are a space where we do that, where we, can raise women and lift them up. Probably because, there's so many masculine spaces where things are very competitive. Some women, I think, have just, picked that up because when you're in masculine spaces where things are competitive, you kind of take that on. And sometimes it's encouraged, right? To have women competing with each other, especially if there's only one, right? One woman. So there's only one position for the woman, right?
And God knows, don't let it be only one Black woman. Then that competition becomes even more stressful and the anxiety becomes even more present.
Yeah. So I do think that's where, a lot of it comes from. But I do hope at least that as we get older, we realize that that's just nonsense and we don't have to tear other women down in order to succeed. And actually, when we bring women together, that's when we all rise, right?
Right. But as we get older, so you've kind of led us right into this. One of the questions I wanted to ask Dr. Lori is, as we get older and we get into this midlife experience, this midlife magic, I myself have experienced more anxiety. Now, not to tell too much of my background, but my anxiety have been really bad because of trauma in the military and MST and PST. So I've found myself in some very dark places, in some places where I felt alone, even though my family was around me. But as I've grown older, like I've developed different type of OCDs and different type of fears because of it. Why do you think that as we get older, that anxiety really paralyzes us in our midlife?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many reasons why. It's almost like, well, we're really anxious. We are juggling multiple roles in life from midlife on. whether that's parenting, our careers, taking care of aging parents. While we're doing all that, we start to sleep poorly. Our hormones start changing. That wreaks havoc on our moods, our ability to regulate our feelings. So we start to feel really, really anxious. Then our cortisol levels go up. Those are our stress hormones. And it goes on. And then there's I think of it as the mushroom cloud of, okay, I'm in midlife. Who am I now? And reevaluating oneself. So now I'm here. Where am I going from here? And how do you figure all that out? And how do you operationalize that? Add to that, aging health concerns, and financial concerns, maybe paying for college or, home issues. So the list is very, very long. And most people at this point have a very long to-do list. And so you wake up in the morning, it's like, I have too many things to do and I don't have enough time to do this. So it just basically, it stresses our nervous system. And the result is anxiety. Now, to add to your story, Denise, when people have earlier experiences, whether it's in the military or early trauma or early in life anxiety, a lot of change, even good change can cause anxiety, like getting married or relocating or promotion at work. So, but old experiences can then get kicked up again around midlife as we're reevaluating who we are. So all the old stuff or recent past stuff kind of kicks us again. So it's not an uncommon experience to all of a sudden say, why am I so anxious now? And people say, well, look, why now? So sometimes people wake up one morning and they're hit with a panic attack or social anxiety or a lot of worry. They're like, but nothing really changed. And I tell them it's usually cumulative stress. We all run around all the time. We're all problem solving, very busy, and cumulative stress over time can kind of just then hit us with anxiety. Anxiety is basically a signal. It's a warning sign telling us there's a threat. It doesn't have to be a literal threat. Like if you're in the military, it could be a threat to your self-esteem. It could be you don't have enough time. You're not sleeping. Your health is suffering. So there are many reasons why anxiety really kicks up during this period of time. And the main thing that I would say about that is that it's all about management, like anything else in life.
Right.
If you have anxiety, you need to learn everything you can learn about it, and everybody's different. And once you accept it, people say, I don't want to accept it. I don't like it. It feels horrible. It's a lousy feeling. And I know I've been anxious my whole life, and there've been periods that have been worse and better. But it's acceptance of, I'm anxious right now. I know the reasons why, and now I'm going to figure out what to do about it. And once you own it and work with it, it starts to decrease. It's basically one of the rules about anxiety.
I think that is so interesting because I have not been a person, honestly, who has suffered from anxiety generally, like in my life. But recently, I have become more anxious. And so I have a trip that I'm going on for my birthday in like 2 weeks. And I'm really excited about it. But now I'm starting to get very anxious about it. And it's funny because it's a long flight. I'm going to the Middle East, but I've taken this flight many times before. But only now am I like, oh my God, I'm going to be on a plane for like 13 hours. And oh my goodness, like, what if I get there and like, I don't like the place anymore, And I was wondering to myself, like, what is that about? Like, what is that? But I do like, and I was trying to push it away. Like, oh, that's ridiculous because like, you shouldn't be anxious about this. Like, you've done this before. But I love how you said you have to accept the anxiety. Like, just accept that this is where you are. This is what you're feeling. And then what's the next step? Like, after I accept this, this is the place that I am.
Good question.
Yeah. But I still want to take my trip.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people have travel anxiety right now. All of a sudden, there's a lot. I've been speaking with a lot of people about it, reading a lot about it. A lot of people feel anxious traveling. There's a lot going on in the world. And even if they've been on a 13-hour flight, it's like, it feels different this time. I feel very apprehensive about it. There are a variety of reasons why. So
My
being
son
on
just
the
had
plane,
a
for
whole-
example, is you're not the pilot. At least I don't think you're the pilot.
I'm not the pilot.
So, but you're not in control. Someone else is
No.
flying the plane. And if you're a person who likes to be in control and you've got a lot going on, and then you're in a situation where for however many hours you're like captive, like, okay, I'm not driving basically or flying, you can feel apprehensive about it. And that becomes what we call anticipatory anxiety. That's a clinical term. When you start to worry before the event. People have that with
Say
social
it
anxiety.
again, Miss Laura.
I got invited to a work event and already like my heart's racing and I'm dreading it. That's called anticipatory anxiety. You get anxious before it happens, and then it feeds on itself. You don't cancel the trip no matter what. All right, you still go to the party, you still go on the trip, you still go to the movies,
Okay.
right? You still go to the concert, whatever the things you've scheduled. You'd never cancel unless you have the flu or something.
I think it's really interesting too, because with Kamisha traveling, there are also layers upon which women, as we're going through perimenopause and into menopause, there's situational things that just can make somebody feel more anxious at different times that we have to deal with. And then there are these other different reasons that we start to feel more anxious that we can't really put our finger on. And it's layered with all the other symptoms of menopause that we might be going through.
Yes.
But it can be quite overwhelming. And I think one of the reasons too, and you can say, well, I'm traveling and I'm identifying that when I'm thinking about traveling, even though it's foreign to me to have this feeling, I can have something concrete to attach that feeling to, that anxiety to.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also find is unnerving is when I'm just starting to feel anxious and there's not a goddamn thing going on around me. Like, I don't know what is happening to create that feeling inside of me. And I think a lot of women, as they're going through menopause and don't have as much of the resources and education because we've been typically historically underserved when it comes to learning about menopause and our hormones for women. So this is a really important education that you're offering us right now too, because what do we do when we don't really feel like we have something we can attach it to, but we're feeling it is overpowering?
Yeah.
I think you bring up a good point about perimenopause, menopause. Because of the hormonal changes, you experience some symptoms they're very similar to anxiety. Your heart could start racing. A lot of people report like, it feels like my heart's not beating in a regular way. The sweating, that's a big symptom of anxiety, like tingly feelings, just feeling spacey, foggy headed, and you're like, can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
Find my eyeglasses, whatever it is. Yeah. These are all, brain and hormonal changes, and they can make you feel either out of it or out of control. You can get stomach aches, back aches, and that all kind of adds to, I don't feel like myself right now. And so what you're also speaking about is all of a sudden you're sitting there, like, everything's fine. Maybe you're like having lunch with a girlfriend, and you're like, all of a sudden you get hit with this anxiety and you start to sweat. And you're like, but nothing happened. Why am I freaking out right now? And so that's what we call free floating. Oh, my printer is going on. What's
It's
What does it say? What's it saying to you?
Must have given it a keyword or something, and it's like, did you say print?
Can we pause? I'm going to go and.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. We're good.
Yeah, we can always cut it out.
Just go.
That's funny. So funny. I love stuff like that.
It's like, what is happening all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Lots of times when Denise and I are talking, there'll be fireworks that shoot off behind her. And we're still trying to figure that out.
I don't know why. It always happens. Yeah, and it always happens when I'm talking about something juicy or emotional or something that I'm so excited about, and all of a sudden these damn fireworks just start popping off in the background.
This is like divine intervention or spiritual visit or something.
Yeah, that's what I always say. I was like,
who knows? Okay, so what I was saying though is, so you could be sitting there having lunch with a girlfriend, and all of a sudden you start sweating, your heart races, and you're like, what's going on right now? And you realize I'm feeling anxious, and you're thinking, but nothing happened. Everything is the same as it was 5 minutes ago. So we call that free floating anxiety. It also could be too warm in the restaurant, and then that kicks off your perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms. But sometimes anxiety just happens randomly and people don't understand it. They're like, I'm walking down the street and it feels like a tidal wave of anxiety came over me, or they're driving all of a sudden and then they get scared in the car. And then, of course, that turns into they're afraid of driving in the same spot because the same thing will happen. Anxiety is very tricky that way. It starts to generalize. So, but yeah, this time of life, there are all these physiological changes. That's why things like exercise, yoga, meditation, staring at the wall, doing box breathing, swimming, like whatever it is, it's so important to try to decrease your stress levels and regulate your nervous system. It's particularly important from midlife on to do that. It's also good for our bones to exercise, but there's so many strategies to have because these symptoms are so varied for anxiety. There are like more than 15 symptoms of anxiety: headaches, stomach aches, backaches, numbness, tingling, heart racing, tightness in the chest, trouble breathing, can't swallow, nausea, can't sleep. It's such a long list that it's hard to figure out what's going on sometimes.
Yeah. Can you imagine though, Kamisha, me staring at the wall, trying to get my shit together and just staring, and my husband's probably trying to figure out did I lose my mind? So I'm always trying to, which is really key, because let me just say this, Dr. Lori, we're researching, and I found out, I've been going down this rabbit hole about women who have gotten divorced due to menopause. And the percentage says 73% of women have claimed that their divorce has came from menopause. So when I think about that, I think maybe because
that sounds dangerously high.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's just crazy because sometimes me and Kamisha was talking about it, and Kamisha said, well, why do you think that? And I said, this is my opinion. First, I feel that we are always looked at as the nurturer, and we are not allowed to turn it off.
Yep.
You can't turn off doing the dishes, doing the homework, doing the laundry, all the nurturing things, and then once we do all that, then we got to go lay down and have sex and do, because we're like this nurturing machine.
Don't sound like you like it that much.
But I'm just saying, we're like this nurturing machine that never turns off. You never turn off. But then all of a sudden, perimenopause or menopause hits, and your body is out of whack. You're having all these anxiety and stress factors, and the speed at which you was serving everyone is slowing down. Yeah. All these things are starting to decrease. Sex life is starting to decrease, and the husband is taking it personal because they don't understand what's going on with you, and we're not understanding it that much either. So they're not educated on it, and we are just walking around sweating with anxiety. And so I can understand how that causes a rift in the marriage. So when I'm going through stuff, I purposely or intentionally try to educate my husband or tell him what I'm doing or what's happening. But I also see some anxiety in him about my anxiety, about what I'm going through. It's like, how do you understand that portion of it? And then how do you know when it's time to get help?
It's a really good question. First off, putting it simply, anxiety makes other people uncomfortable. So when one person is anxious, people start to feel uncomfortable. So even if someone is a loving partner, really close friend, people don't know what to do with it. Some people who've never been anxious a day in their life, and we're all wired for anxiety from an evolutionary perspective. We need anxiety because, like, if someone's chasing you, you need to run away. You basically have to stay alive. So we all have it. And some people it kicks off too often, but it makes other people feel uncomfortable. Yeah. So I think it is really important to tell your partner or your friends, or even maybe someone you confide in at work, this is what's happening right now. I'm starting to get anxiety. I'm confiding in you. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable. Can I let you know occasionally when it's happening? Tell your partner like what you need. People cannot read your mind. And not everyone knows about perimenopause, menopause, anxiety. There's been a lack of education. Fortunately, there's a lot about menopause that's coming up now. But a lot of men don't know anything about it. They're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so tired all the time? Why are you so moody?
Yeah.
Are
Are you on your period?
Yeah. Everything gets chalked up to
Yeah.
that. And so that's going to make you feel alone in it. And then you don't necessarily even want to open up. But the people can't read your mind. So it's really essential that you tell people, I have some anxiety. I'm figuring out why. And here's what you can do for me when it happens. Maybe you can go for a walk with me. Maybe you can give me a hug. Maybe we can watch a movie together on Netflix and just kind of be quiet for a while. Because what you're describing is for so many years being like, a robot where you have a gazillion things to do, taking care of everyone. And then like, you're right, all of a sudden, your brain's not working the same way. You slow down and people they expect the same things of you.
I can't
can't deliver. And then you start to change maybe how you view yourself. Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why can't I remember anything? What, I can't do things.
And that's the biggie.
And then there's a crisis of self. Like, am I falling apart? And so the people around you are just witnessing what's wrong with you? Yeah. And that is why there's a women really need to get together and share this stuff and laugh about it too. Yeah. Like I took this with my friends. One of my friends is like, they don't, what was the end of that movie we saw 2 weeks ago? We're just laughing about it. And I'm like, I love you anyway, whatever. So that's why we need to share with one another. But sometimes partners, kids don't understand. Anxiety is history to certain people. Some people
many times we don't understand ourselves. We don't understand what's happening to us. We don't understand the process that we're going through, physiologically, biologically, and that I think can also make people pull back from their partners and not discuss it, because they're also terrified about what the heck's going on. Is this a sign of early dementia, because I'm forgetting everything? Is this, a sign that I have heart disease because my heart is just beating, the palpitations are happening all the time. So all of these things that are representative of anxiety, as you said, there's so many different symptoms that you can be having when you're anxious, where our brain starts fluttering around it, and the anxiety just keeps going up and up and up and up because we're associating it with all these things, not really knowing what's happening to us, and then pulling away from the people around us because we feel very isolated in our fear of this anxiety that keeps raising and raising and raising. So really good point about discussing it and being a little more open about it, I think, too.
And that leads to your question, Denise. How do you know when it's time then
to get help,
to reach out? Because Carolyn, to your point, you start to keep it to yourself. You may feel embarrassed about your symptoms.
I've kept it to myself for a long time.
Right? Yeah. And so I always tell people, like, when the time to potentially reach out is if you feel like you can't get through your daily activities. That's work, taking care of your home, taking care of your family. You're really not sleeping for a while. You're saying no to a lot of social invites, not just because you have social anxiety, but you just feel like you're just not up to it. And you don't derive joy and pleasure, and you're not laughing the way you usually do. Look, life is serious. Everybody has a lot of pressure. But if you're really not enjoying any of it, and your mood starts to drop as well with the anxiety, it's a good idea to then start to think about maybe going for a consultation. Look, therapy helped me a lot. It's not for everyone. There are different ways to deal with anxiety or depression or, relationship issues, whatever it is. But at that point, it's a good time to reach out and go for a consultation. And I always say, trust your gut. If you meet with someone, the most successful part of therapy, and studies have shown this over decades, is how well you get along and how comfortable you are with a therapist. If you're sitting with a therapist and you're like, I can't talk to this person, you need to trust that. Maybe meet with them once or twice if they're really recommended. But if you're like, I can't open up, that's the most healing part of therapy. People have different ways of doing therapy. I do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is about thoughts we have. You can do, there are all kinds of therapy, but the most important thing is, who is this person you're sitting with or on screen with? And you need to trust it. So you may need to meet with two people. And people ask about medication. I know that was one of the questions you threw out there. Like, I'm very middle of the road about medication. One thing about anxiety is you have to approach the fears. If you start to hide in the house and not see your friends, where you no longer get behind the wheel of the car, right? Or you don't get on the subway, you're avoiding things, you don't go shopping because there are too many people. You're just feeding the anxiety. That's science. That's absolute science. So talking about it is really important, but the behavior part is also really important. And you can do some of that yourself. You have to, if you get into a car accident, what do you need to do? You need to get back in the car. Otherwise, you're going to be afraid of driving forever. It's like you fall off of a horse or you get bit by a dog. You have to reapproach. And so therapy is one tool.
So we're not allowed to kick that horse. Is that what you're saying?
You're not going to want to go near the horse. Never mind kick the horse. So you're not even going to be able to approach
goddamn horse.
You're gonna be scared of the horse. So.
That's really interesting that you say too, because before we started recording, I was telling you that I love to go to the movies. It's one of my favorite things because I love to support in the theaters. But I have social anxiety so bad because of the military sexual trauma that has happened in my life. And so when I go to the movies, I have this OCD of sitting all the way at the top with my back to the wall. And I do it all the time because I have to watch everyone that's coming in, and then I have to make sure I know where the exits are.
Yeah, you're scanning. So you're scanning your environment, looking for the exits, watching other people. That's hypervigilance, being on guard, because you have to be, because you have to protect yourself. Yeah.
And I was talking to my therapist, and what I realized is when I was sexually assaulted, I was grabbed from behind, from the back.
That makes sense.
And it was pretty bad, drugged to the floor, the whole thing. And so now when I have to have something to my back, because to me, it's protecting me. No one can come from my back. Right. So how do you get past that? How do you get through that? Because I feel like it has jumped from anxiety and fear to an OCD, a compulsive disorder, where I just have to make sure that I can feel something on my back when we go into public places.
So Denise, that is, I also, I did clinical research on trauma, and that's a classic, actually, PTSD symptom. It's called hypervigilance, where when you go somewhere, you want to know where everyone is. You want to know where your escape is. You never want to be blindsided, someone coming up behind you. So it kicks up your anxiety as a way to protect yourself. And so I've actually worked with many women and some men who've been traumatized, whether it's in the military or they've been abused in childhood or adolescence, wherever. And I sometimes would go walk them on the streets, and they would be like looking like this, constantly looking over their shoulder. And it's the behavioral piece. I would sometimes just walk with them very slowly, maybe for 3 minutes. And then, over time, your anxiety comes down. And it is the only way to reduce that kind of symptom. With military stuff, they do, a lot of virtual reality. They put headphones on you and they show you the battlefield. I'm sure you've seen this. And basically, you hear the sounds, you get a visual, and again, you're approaching your fears. Science shows that's the only way through it, and it's really painful because why would you want to make yourself vulnerable? Like you want to be protecting yourself. So it's like a catch-22. You want to feel better, but then you don't want to let your guard down. So you're in this kind of weird space. The only thing that the studies show is you have to slowly reapproach. You'll be scared. You might get angry. You might dissociate and get really spacey, but it's the only way over time for that symptom to come down. And it really, really works. I've worked with so many people who've been traumatized, who have that symptom, and it gets a lot better, but it takes time and perseverance and sticking with it, because it's not comfortable at first. Not comfortable anyway, but It's really hard to do, but I promise you it works. It's really hard though, because you want to protect yourself. You don't want to be violated again. And it's a threat to PTSD is a threat to your survival. It is, or your integrity or your physical body, whatever it is. And so your nervous system is going to be like, I'm not letting anyone in my space. So you're carving out a safe space for yourself, right? Sit in the back row, know where your getaway is, and no one's right near you. You're carving out a safe, protected space, which makes perfect sense given what you're saying. But you'll stay in that space unless slowly you come out of the space. It's really hard.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that right now.
Maybe not right now, but
in a movie theater, like I try it, when we go like to a restaurant, but I still try to make sure something's to my back. But in the movie theater, and it's dark, it's almost like it's recreating the setting almost.
But it is. That's smart. That's exactly right. It's called re-triggering.
Yeah.
It's dark. You can't see where everyone is. Someone could come up behind you and boom, you're getting completely triggered to the initial trauma. And that's exactly what happens. What you're describing is exactly what other people describe. You're not alone, but it's very painful and scary.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Denise. I mean, it's the authentic sharing that, comes out of these conversations that allows those listening who aren't able to talk about it or even admit to themselves that some of these things have happened to them to be able to understand and know that they're not alone in these things. And then hearing all of the advice from Dr. Davis at the same time, it'll gives them that hope for themselves too. So appreciate that.
I do have a question though, Dr. Lori, about knowing the difference between when it's like a serious anxiety issue or it's a safety issue, because as Denise was sharing her story, it brought to mind something I do when I go to restaurants where I like to watch the door, right? I don't like to be in a place where I can't see like who's coming through the front of the door. But I don't feel that I'm not necessarily safe, I would say. But I just feel more comfortable being able to have that kind of position. So I guess my question is, when do you know, okay, that's just like a quirk sort of thing versus, oh, that's an anxiety issue. Like that's something you really need to be working on to reduce.
Great question. If you were in situations where you went to a restaurant with some friends or family or work colleagues and you couldn't be in that spot, let's say there was no table available where you wanted it and you literally couldn't relax the whole lunch or dinner and you were flooded with like, I'm really uncomfortable. You kept thinking about it like, I can't see the door, where you start to be literally uncomfortable. If you are seeking out that table and can't imagine sitting somewhere not near the door where you can't see it, then it's something to think about. You may be worried about something and just not connecting to it. We all do that. We all sometimes have something, maybe it's a quirk, but if you start to feel uncomfortable, like if you start to feel like, I want to leave now, like, oh, I can't wait to get home, right? Where I'm going to be able to breathe more easily. If you're just fascinated by who's coming in the door, whatever. That's
she's just goddamn nosy. Let's get to the bottom of this one.
Like, who's that? But
she thinks a celebrity's going to walk through.
Exactly.
Maybe, Carolyn, maybe.
Exciting, but that's a different story. But you trust your gut. If you're feeling really uneasy, feeling uneasy is different than, I love to sit near the door. I can see like outside, the fresh air, the sky. That's different than, if I can't get that table, I'm going to be preoccupied and think about it a lot. I won't be able to have a good time. So that's a good way to gauge it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very good advice.
It's a huge issue. And as time goes on and as life goes on for me, I'm realizing more and more how many other women, especially again in our age group and beyond, really do experience a lot of anxiety. And And I really appreciate the ways that you have offered, to take a look at it, to identify it, and the suggestions to move forward with it in life, because that ultimately is the goal. Whether we can eradicate it from our lives, which of course, as you said, we can't. It serves a purpose. There's an evolutionary purpose to feeling anxious. However, when it starts to overcome our lives, and especially if it's not something we've been able to attach it to in our past, and now we're coming into a time in our lives when it's heightened for all these other reasons,
Yeah.
hormonal reasons, that things going on in our lives. And maybe it's a place that is also a gift-giving place, where at this age it gets to a point where it becomes, for whatever the dynamics are behind it, it becomes worse, and we don't understand it. And sometimes, like we've been talking about, we don't even identify if it's a problem, or if it is anxiety, or if it's not anxiety, or what it is. It's just different.
Right.
It's just different. And the level we're feeling is different. But I wonder if that then gives us this opportunity to say, do I want to keep looking at whatever I've got left ahead of me? Do I want to at least understand it and then say, okay, this is it. This is how I feel, and that's okay. And I'm okay feeling that way. But not knowing and venturing through it and continuing to spiral in the power of it can really leave us defenseless and feeling powerless. And I think that there is a gift in this time as women where we can start to say, what do I really want from my life? And part of that scope of an outlook that we get to take at this time in our lives also includes our mental health and what matters to us as we move forward, and how do we want to experience life in the years that we have ahead of us. So it's really powerful. I appreciate all of your stories here.
Many women, and especially Black women, we're looked as the strong person. And I know that that's categorized around a lot of women, but we tend to hear that a lot with Black women when no one comes to our rescue. I heard, read an article was talking about a percentage, and I don't want to quote the number now because I think I might get it wrong, that Black women are one of the most neglected species on the earth, because no one will come to our distress call because we look or we are exhibiting strong performances or strong behavior. And so in that, we don't even seek for help. We are hesitant to seek for help. How do you help us to normalize? And I speak of women of color because I am a woman of color, but I know that there are so many inclusivity with women going through the same thing. But how do we normalize the position of going to seek help for anxiety, for mental health, for stress orders? I mean, I just recently started seeing a therapist, but I should have been seeing a therapist a long time ago. But of course, I'm the strong one, and I'm hesitant because I don't want to look as if I don't have my shit together,
Yeah.
It's kind of like Pandora's box. Once you say, I'm really anxious, or I have PTSD symptoms, or I'm feeling down or depressed, or I'm spending too much money compulsively, like whatever it is, eating too much, we can go on and on. To admit that something's really going on internally is very scary for anyone who has been socialized. Got to handle it all. You're basically on your own. No one's going to step up and help you. You've got to work. You've got to pay your bills. You've got to take care of your loved ones. No one's looking out for you. So to admit, something's going on, it's like admitting a huge vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do that, to admit, hey, something's going on, and all of my coping strategies, all the things worked for me in the past are not working now.
Yeah.
And it's like, big time. It's really, really scary. And the question is, are you ready then to open up to a complete stranger when you've been taking care of yourself and handling it all internally, to open up to someone you don't know, like somebody gave you a name? Like it's really hard to do that. And also to believe that someone else can help you when you've been helping yourself, or will anyone really understand what your experience is? So it's not easy to maneuver that. And often what happens is people come to therapy, and I've seen people who were literally 80 years old who were traumatized, who have PTSD. They were socialized. Don't tell anyone. You're going to be punished if you tell anyone. You'll be thrown out of the family, or you won't have any money, or they'll kill you, whatever it is. So you get socialized not to say anything. So I've met people I never told a soul about this. I'm 80 years old. Can you? I mean, that's just. And then they just open up, and then someone's bearing witness to their trauma, listening for the first time, and it's so healing to sit there and have someone listen quietly to your experience. That is so powerful. And a lot of people never get the chance to do that because they're like, I have to deal with it myself. I have to handle it myself. I've got to be stronger. What's wrong with me? I can do better. I shouldn't be anxious. I shouldn't be depressed. I shouldn't have trouble getting my work done. We're all socialized to do so much with little room to say, I need help. And then to trust that someone actually can help you and will help you and stick with you. It's a huge deal. Such a big deal.
Yeah.
I believe that. I totally believe that. What are your thoughts around that, Kamisha?
I mean, it's just a very hard. I think this is a very difficult time for women this age, because there's so much change that has happened for us, whether it's like physical changes, like, menopause and all the hormonal changes, or there's other like external things happening in your family. Maybe you are becoming an empty nester, or maybe you are changing your career, right? And so when divorce or getting married for the first time, even,
huge stuff,
so there's so many things that are happening at this age. I think sometimes it's hard to know what is the thing that is causing it, right? What is the thing that is triggering this anxiety? Like I mentioned with my travel, is it because of what's going on in the travel, in the world these days, and what's happening with, airplanes? Or is it me? Like, is there something else that's happening hormonally? Or is it something underneath that, that I'm worried about that I don't. And I feel that, when we don't really know what's causing it, sometimes we definitely are hesitant to go see someone because we're like, oh, they won't be able to help us because I need to figure out what it is first, at least before I can even explain it, to somebody else. But I've lately, and I would say probably in the last 10 years, have erred on the side of, if you can't really figure it out, that's okay. And it's okay to get someone to try and help you figure it out, right? Like, you don't need to wait to figure it out on your own or whatever, you know what I mean? To try to figure out what it is before you can seek some help, because that just kind of leads into like a spiraling down.
Definitely.
I think it doesn't really help, it just sometimes makes things much, much worse. But I think it's just such a difficult time for women of our age in general because of some of the transitions that they don't even know what's normal, what's not normal, like what's causing this, what should I be worried about? What should I not be worried about? Maybe this is just what happens during this time. That causes a lot of the confusion of, when they need to seek help and when to just let it go.
Yeah. And removing the shame attached to it, if there is shame attached to it as well.
Yeah. And it might not be shame that you are ashamed, and maybe shame that your environment has put on you, like a family member, culturally,
exactly,
or friends, or I agree. Sure. I agree. Well, in being in our midlife, we are trying to make it magical. We're trying to be reinventive. We are trying to grow, Dr. Lori, you had wrote to us and you said, I think that all of us need to keep growing and changing throughout our life. And you said you're in your second career and maybe you'll have a third.
Maybe.
That's your prerogative. You get to choose that. We may have skills now that we did not have in our 20s. I know that's true.
Right.
But how do you gain that amazing perspective around your midlife magical journey of going from one career to the next career, and knowing that this is right? Because there's anxiety in that. as well.
Absolutely.
You
Of
know,
course, there's like a
so
boatload of anxiety with that.
how do you tackle that? How do you tackle that?
So a couple of things. So my favorite quote is, "It's never too late to be what you might have been," and
Oh,
that
I
was
love
it
that.
with me. I had to know that there was George Eliot, who's a female British writer who had to use a male name to get her stuff
Mhm.
published. So that tells you a lot.
Yeah.
But it's never too late. And like for me, I went and switched careers because I knew I was supposed to be a psychologist. I just knew it. So one of the things is motivation is so important with everything in life, something that you really want. And I thought, if I'm on my, not to be morbid, but like if I'm on my deathbed and I didn't do this for myself, I would be full of regret. I
Yeah.
knew that. So I always said, ask yourself that question. When I'm nearing the end of my life, whenever that is, what would I feel really sad about or regretful about? And that will give you some answers. Now, making a change in career or relationship or relocating, reinventing yourself, it's never too late to do it, but you're going to be hit with anxiety. You can't avoid anxiety in life. Anxiety is all about not knowing. That's the definite, not knowing.
Mhm.
What if something bad happens? So if you reinvent yourself, you can be like, hey, I want to start writing, or I want to be an actress, or I want to sell whatever, or I want to go to medical school. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're going to be anxious about it. No one's going to give you like a little like gift certificate, 100% guarantee you're going to be successful in this career, right? But studies do show that when we do things that we love, we're going to be better at it. We're going to be more successful at it. So that's a good guy. You're going to be scared. I was scared. Every time I try something new, when I went on Instagram, I was a deer caught in headlights. I was like, I literally could not make a video without having a panic attack. I just like delete, delete, delete. And now it's 2 years later. I'm still really anxious, but I did it. And I
Did
was
it.
really scared because I wanted to try to help people and I wanted to try something new. You're going to be anxious. There's no guarantee. But if you don't try it, the regret
It's
is
gonna,
going
That's
to
pretty
eat at you.
guaranteed.
It's
Yeah.
going to eat at you. So I would say, try it. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
You don't do well at it. But
Yeah.
then if you
I've
don't do it, you'll be like, what if? The what ifs in life, nasty, right? Those what ifs, the what if, could have, should haves, and the what ifs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the first time I've looked like an asshole, and it won't be the last, right?
Right.
And I know,
So,
Carolyn, Carolyn, you have kind of sauntered into your second and third journey of your midlife. Did you feel
yeah,
that anxiety as well?
absolutely. Absolutely. And just generally anxiety is something that I have dealt with for most of my life. And I had to come to terms with the fact that, as Dr. Davis has said, that the only thing I know with certainty is if I don't try it, I will regret it. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'll be successful, whatever successful is. I don't know if, I'll make mistakes. I don't know, as I said earlier, if I'll look like an asshole, and maybe I will, but I'll be a happy one because I'll know at the end of the day that I did it, I tried, and goddamn,
Mhm.
I went through it. I went through
Yeah.
with it and I figured it out for myself because you don't know until you try. And if it isn't for you, that's also incredible wisdom and incredible growth. That's something that you've gained because you don't know until you've actually done it. And so that frees you up to go and look and do whatever else it is that it might be that you should be doing or want to be doing or would like to do. And so really important to just find what it is. And I do think you were talking about being morbid and talking about mortality, but there
It's
is
a
a
big
huge
thing in
gift.
midlife. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a huge gift in recognizing that our days are numbered, and it doesn't mean that I've got 10 years or 40 years left. We don't know if we have tomorrow left. And that's just a reality. So what are we doing with it? What are we doing with it? And facing some of those things, and as difficult as they are, and at least identifying things that are affecting us, identifying ways, whether we do something, don't do something, they're all part of our movement and our growth moving forward in life, and any change can
Yeah.
equate to that.
I
So
agree. I think Kamisha, you can relate to it as well, because there was one point that Kamisha just walked away from corporate America.
Wow.
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and walked away in a whole nother country.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about it before she did it, and I remember getting off the phone saying to my husband, that damn Kamisha is one of the bravest women that I know. But I can imagine that there was some anxiety behind that decision as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was necessary. I think I had gotten to a point where I didn't feel like I had a choice.
Mm.
That's interesting. You're taking me back now, Denise, to try to remember. But yeah, it was very scary. I mean, I've worked in corporate, I had worked in corporate America in some form since graduating from college. And corporate America had taken me to the Middle East to this, wonderful job and beautiful people and great experience. And then when that was coming to an end and I was coming back to America, I was meeting all kinds of challenges. And then the irony is, I think because of that experience I had in the Middle East, I didn't want to come back to all of that nonsense in America. And I said, I just quit. I'm out, tapping out, and I really had not much of a plan at all. I mean, literally, I was in another country. I had a visa, so I couldn't stay there very long without working. And I remember I had a friend and she said, well, I guess you'll just go back to America, but what are you going to do until then? And that's when I had scheduled my solo trip. I had never taken a solo trip. It was really kind of liberating. It's interesting because things that you're really afraid of, once you get on the other side of it, it feels good. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's going to be great. And I think I'm going to do this first, and then maybe I'll do that. And then after that, I'll kind of figure it out. But it didn't feel brave at the time. It just felt like I had to do it. It just felt necessary, and I can't even think about a different decision now. At the time, I was like, well, maybe, but no, I'm like, no, definitely got to quit. Definitely got to quit. So I think sometimes we get to places where we feel like there is no other option.
Right.
And that's when to me, it's from your spirit, right? It's from your spirit that's pushing you in that direction, because your spirit is obviously not going to lead you in a bad place. And if it's saying, this is it, we're done, you got to listen, you got to move,
Yeah.
Even if there's a little anxiety and a lot of stress, because I still had to get all my stuff back to America. I didn't know any of that. But it worked out, and now I'm here with you beautiful people, so you never know what it's going to, lead to down the line either. But also I've started thinking about what if it works out instead of what if it doesn't. And so when you kind of look at things in that way, it helps, right? It helps. And because we worry so much, this is the worst thing that can happen.
Especially
like,
women.
What if it's the best thing that can happen? And what if it's going to all work out even better than I thought? And none of the things that I'm doing now could I have imagined would have happened when I quit, all of those years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a great story. Saying yes for you just opened things up, and you trusted, whether it's spirituality or just trust in your gut, whatever it is. We're just programmed not to trust our guts, right? Don't trust it, and then we start to overthink everything and worry about it, and then we get stuck. We don't do it. You knew time to go, bye-bye, and you just trusted that, and then it opened everything up. And rarely when that happens is there that huge regret, because things happen that you never imagined, that you couldn't, like you said, you couldn't even visualize. And that's the beauty of kind of acknowledging change is hard. Maybe it's necessary, or maybe you just want something. And it's okay also to just want something in life. We're always programmed, take care of everyone, do this, do that. What do you want? So if something was compelling you to just make a change, you did it. But similarly at midlife, where death is closer, we're evaluating our lives. Maybe we have some wants too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like and it's okay to want.
We've buried it for a long time, and then it's like, all right, well, the kids are older, and like I've been in this job for a while, whatever. Maybe things are more stable financially, whatever it is. what do I want? The word want is like really scary because that
Yeah.
opens things up big time.
Because we've
Yeah.
never cared too much about what we want. It's always
That's right.
what other people want, and
Yeah.
we want to make sure that their needs are cared for. So to sit back and say, "What do you want?" It's like, shit, I don't
Somebody's
even know.
asking me.
Right,
I'm
you're not
asking
talking
me.
to me.
Yeah.
Right. It
Yeah.
becomes it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable, and it's like you have to give yourself permission to say, I want something.
Yeah.
Well,
This is the
I'm
only life that we're having right now on this
Yeah.
earth.
exactly.
So it's up to us to try to make it happen. And midlife is a wonderful time to do that.
That's why I'm giving all of us permission to jump on that goddamn plane with Kamisha in 2 weeks.
Well,
We're going on that birthday trip, ladies.
and instead of the Netflix and chill, I heard Netflix and be quiet, be silent,
Just be silent.
just be silent.
Just be silent.
Well, Dr. Lori, we have a couple more questions for
sure.
you before we wrap up. This has been amazing, and before we even go into these questions, I want to put it out there and ask that, if you're ever available, we would love to re-invite you to different episodes that we address
Anytime.
specifics,
I'd love to. This was
specifics of
great.
anxiety. I love it. I love that I read in your bio about being a 9/11, helping others to get through the 9/11 stress disorder. And I know that there were many women in there that suffered severely, mentally, physically, spiritually, all the things. And I would love to tackle that in an episode. So I just want to have the honor of inviting you back to our platform as well, to the center table, to tackle some of those subjects as well.
It would be my pleasure. I can't wait to do it. It was great. Yeah.
Thank you. So Carolyn or Kamisha, before I ask Dr. Lori her final few questions, or one question, is there anything that you would like to ask Dr. Lori before we wrap up this episode? Because this has been amazing and has been so insightful and so much knowledge shared. And I've taken, like, you know me, I'm a notes taker. I've taken all these notes. And is there anything, Carolyn, that you would like to ask Dr. Lori, and then Kamisha?
I'd love to know what you're doing for you now. We're talking about women, encouraging them to try something new, do something that you're not always that comfortable with, and I'd love to know what you're looking at, maybe in the future or maybe right now.
So I just started writing again. And I'm writing a little bit about anxiety and seeing where that goes. Have some nibbles.
Awesome.
Because I found that being on Instagram, like, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, this is goofy. I'm just going to do this. See what happens. No, my friends and family were like, you're doing that? You're like kind of shy. But anyway, I did it. So I've met so many wonderful people. People write every day. Like, I know social media gets a bad rap, and obviously there's a downside to some of it. But people have been really warm and sharing, like me getting on camera and saying, I have the training, but I have anxiety too. Like, I have a lot of anxiety. Like, I'm not BSing. It's real. I've had it my whole life. Like, I've had every symptom. I've tried everything, and now I can manage it. But so I'm writing now, and also, started taking dance lessons about a year and a half ago, although I'm on pause right now because my teacher's been doing other stuff. But I started learning the salsa, not very well, and some other dances, and that was
good for you.
Yeah, and I took one pickleball lesson 2 weeks ago.
That's the new thing.
Yeah,
it's a new thing. Everyone's playing pickleball. I'm like, I don't know what it is. So I watched a YouTube video and I was like, okay, I'm going to take a lesson. And even though my back was really like hurting me after, it was really fun. So I'm going to try that. But writing is another way to express myself, and doing more podcasts and getting out of my own shell, because I'm always anxious. So saying yes anyway and seeing what happens.
Yes.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you.
Well, my last question, Dr. Lori, is you've mentioned a number of times about being on Instagram and kind of putting yourself out there like in a big way. And as an anxious person, to me, that's kind of the ultimate, like being on a screen, talking to people. Like, what have you learned about yourself after putting yourself out there in that like really big way on Instagram or on whatever social media platform?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I was kind of a shy, I was a sociable but kind of shy younger person. And so this was the ultimate, like you said, this was almost like counterphobic. Do something you're really scared of and see what happens. And I thought I was nuts for doing it, but I said I'm doing it anyway. What I've learned about myself is I had all these conceptions of how you're supposed to present to the world. We're all supposed to like, what does success look like? How are you supposed to look? How are you supposed to sound? You know, I'm a psychologist. Am I supposed to sound like scholarly or whatever? And I've learned through this experience to just be myself. And there's nothing more beautiful in life than to just say, this is who I am, for better or worse. And I can find a gazillion flaws, but to be myself. And that's how I'm connecting with people. And I think that's, for me, it's been such a meaningful thing to have people write to me and saying, hey, I have anxiety too. Or, you know, me saying, how can I help you? Or just like, I'm sending you a virtual hug, anything. Just being myself, how I was supposed to be in the first place and not fighting it. And midlife is a good time for that, right? To be the person you always were, maybe better and maybe a little more tired, but embracing that personhood. And Instagram's helped me to go further with that. Just be myself. And if people don't like me or they think, oh, well, she's not that smart or what she's saying is dumb, okay. You know, or I look weird, you know, you get comments on Instagram. So
yeah, we get comments.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Because I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. And that's one of the things about life. Ask yourself, am I where I think I'm supposed to be? And if you know that feeling when you're doing something in life and it's just very in sync with who you are.
My therapist said, if you feel within inside that you are where you're supposed to be and all the distraction and the negativity is not serving you, you are allowed to not feed into it. You are not allowed to not listen to it, because in your heart, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So I totally agree. Totally.
Yeah. It's hard to get there. Like the two of you and Carolyn, of course, like you guys are so comfortable on camera. I'm like, they are. This must have been something like in the beginning you were anxious about, like, oh, we're just gonna like do the podcasts and write books and blah blah blah, you know. And I'm like, wow, this is like a big deal. You too, Carolyn. I'm like, I couldn't do that.
Oh, they're naturals.
Some like, what if this doesn't work out? Or maybe was there?
Well, you know, go ahead.
Go ahead, Denise. You want?
No. Go ahead.
So before I worked with Denise on this show, I worked on 2 other shows, if you will. So I had a podcast with my son that was also a video podcast.
Wow.
And I love that. I also get comfort, I guess, with other people, right? So it relaxes me. Yeah. So I started out with, you know, my son, and we did this podcast, and then
what'd you talk about?
We talked about all kinds of stuff.
Oh, it was just like whatever you.
Yeah, it was like,
but it was generational gap in there too, because I would listen to it and I would listen to what her son would say, and I'm like, oh my God, and then I would hear Misha going, no, that's not how we do it at our age. So it was really cool to see the generational, you know, thought process from either one of them.
Yeah, it was like a pop culture kind of show, I guess. So we talked about news and like current events, and then my son would find all kinds of like interesting stories out there in the world, and then we would comment on them, and we played games. We had different games that we played, so it was actually a lot of fun to me. But you know, as young people do, they have other ideas. So we had creative differences. So we had to part with. But just on the show, you know, we still all love everywhere else. But that helped me to like, you know, get way more comfortable. And then I also did like a little interview show on Instagram where I talked to women and about happiness. And
that's a tough one.
I interviewed like 20 or 30 women or something. And I think I also got encouraged because people would say to me, oh my God, you're doing such a great job. Like, or at the end of that, oh my goodness, you seem so comfortable. Or, oh my goodness, you ask such great questions. Or, and then I had to think, maybe I'm pretty good at this. Like maybe there's something there that I didn't see and I leaned more into it. And I
Yeah.
think that also helped me to become more comfortable with it, like, over time.
Yeah, you seem very comfortable. You too, Denise.
Yeah. So with me, mine came out of a therapeutic need. So during COVID, I got really depressed. I'm already like anxiety, all the things, and
Yeah.
so during COVID, I got really depressed. But one thing was constant and consistent was me and my husband's conversations. We always talk over coffee. We love coffee, love it. And we are always sharing and always conversating, always communicating everything over coffee. And one day someone said, "You guys should do a podcast." And we're like, "Do a podcast? Nobody want to hear our conversations." And we're also an interracial couple of 35 years. And they're saying, people want to know, they want to hear your stories. And so we didn't know what we were doing. So we actually invested in master classes and mentors and coaches. We kind of did our homework and really invested to try to understand. And we did it audio at first. It was for a first year, it was only audio, no video, because I was too afraid to be on camera. And my husband was like, I labeled him my sidekick. Just wherever I tell him to go, whatever topic, he was just there, let's go. And then we added a segment to our podcast to interview up and coming or new or local entrepreneurs to tell how they have gotten over the fear of owning their own business and then giving other people tips to jump into entrepreneurial environments. And that would be on camera. And that's kind of how I started getting my video legs up under me.
Do you remember the first time the video?
Hey, that's personal.
That person.
Right.
Okay, where's this conversation going?
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I interviewed two of my friends, and I didn't do it on video. I was too afraid. And so they appeased me, and one of them was my co-author, because I have a children's book out, and so we did audio. And then the second one, I actually did video, and I was so nervous. Already have hot flashes, but I was having them bad, like armpit sweat. And then I would over talk because I didn't want any dead spaces, not understanding that I could just edit it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I would over talk and try to fill up all the spaces. And we interviewed two amazing this gay married male couple, and we interviewed them, and they had actually helped us to launch our podcast. And they were so patient with us and so kind and so loving that toward the end, I was like, my husband looked at me and he said, "You can do this. It's therapeutic. You can do this. I know you can." But the only feedback I got from other people was that you were talking too much, like you tried to fill up the space. So
you still did it. You did it anyway.
Yeah. My writing coach, she used to always say, "Do it afraid. Just do it afraid."
Yeah.
Just do it afraid. Mm.
Look, we definitely need you need some anxiety for fuel.
That's right.
We need mild to moderate anxiety to get excited about things, to get the energy to do things. It's when you get into the more than moderate area, then you kind of trip over your words or your heart starts racing. But we need some anxiety. So it's definitely, and even if it's a lot of anxiety, you do it anyway. You just, you go into the tunnel and you're going to come out the other side. And if you pass out, okay,
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things for me is I got to do it virtually. Kamisha tell you, I don't like to leave the house. I'm introvert, and so I got to do it virtually, and that was like the best thing ever. That COVID, I feel like that was the only good thing.
There was some comfort in your discomfort. You were able to put some comfort in your discomfort by doing it from your house.
Nice. Doing it from my home. Yeah, that was it. So, Dr. Lori, our last question is, How in this season of midlife magic, tell us at the center table how our midlife magical women, as they're reinventing, as they're growing, how do they embrace this season? Share, how would they embrace this season with less fear and more confidence?
I think that, one of the things that's really helpful is to really be clear about your strengths at this point in life. And so one of the things that everyone can do is, as a starting point, is sit down and write what you have to offer. Like I said, we have skills now that we didn't have at 20. We have perspective now, maybe we didn't have at 30. We keep evolving and changing. So check in with yourself first and know what you really are bringing to the table at this point in life. That's the first thing. Because sometimes people can approach it with, but I don't feel like myself anymore. I'm too tired, or I don't, I forgot what I want in life, and that's going to happen too. But what's good? What strengths do you have? I would start with that. And try to visualize. Visualization is really helpful. Try to visualize a different reality for yourself. And maybe you're not going to get there tomorrow or next year, but try to literally see something different for yourself, because we all have fantasies about different parts of life, how we can be, where we want to be. And try, instead of blocking, oh no, I can't do that, or that's not feasible, or that's never going to work out. Because our minds, we always go, we're going to go for safety. Like, that's too scary. Try to leave room in your space to sit and just visualize something else. It could be anything. I've worked with people who quit their jobs, Kamisha, like what you did, just said, I'm done. Ended relationships, went on an adventure trip, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. Try to visualize it for a while before you go, well, oh no, how much will that cost? Or how much time will that take? Just try to see it first. Don't block your dreams. Yes, you have to function and you're going to be in a go, go, go mode. Leave some space to just think about it and percolate for a while. No one's going to, this is a key. As much as your loved ones may love you and support you, no one can do this for you but you. You have to give yourself permission to say at this juncture, everybody's doing okay, or they're not doing okay, or they're older. And this has got to be part of my time too. So giving yourself permission is the other piece. If you don't give yourself permission, you're always going to come up with excuses. Well, maybe next year, maybe in 10 years, maybe when I retire, maybe when this happens, right? There's never a good time, really, to give yourself permission. So true. There are better times, but there's never a good time. You have to give yourself, so visualize, give yourself permission, and then and then map out a game plan. And the other thing is, if it doesn't work out again, we talked about this, worse off than you were before, but you won't have the regret. We have to keep moving forward. I think we are meant to all evolve and learn and grow, and think about all the lessons you've learned in life from everything you've experienced. You're going to learn new lessons by putting yourself out there, even when you're scared, even if you feel different, even if you're not sure about yourself. So it really is never too late to be what you might have been. I am living and breathing that, and I'm anxious a lot of the time. I don't like it. I hate it. I despise it, but I live with it. And we all live with things that we've experienced, and we live with things that plague us, and we keep moving forward. And it's the same thing about reinvention. See it and do it. You're not going to feel comfortable. That's okay for the most part.
Yeah. Great advice.
Thank you. Anybody want to add anything to that before we close? This has been amazing. I'm so glad, so very glad, Dr. Davis, that you said yes to the center table. Thank you so much. Is there any other parting advice from you, Miss Carolyn or Kamisha, as we wrap this up?
I'm just grateful that we all got together tonight, and that Dr. Davis was available to join us. And I think it's been a great conversation, and I'm better for it. So
yes,
love these talks.
I
Me too. It was,
echo everything that Carolyn said. I always love when women come together,
Me
to
too.
like support women and talk about women and share what's going on with each other, because I do think that it makes an impact in other women's lives. So thank you, Dr. Davis. This has been magical.
please call me Lori. It feels very formal, and I'm not very formal. It was great. Carolyn, it's good to see you again.
Great to
Denise,
see you.
so great to meet you. I look forward to doing this again and talking about all things midlife and anxiety and anything else that comes up.
Anything else?
Great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.